Sometimes one of our quick tips stimulates a question that produces another one. In this case, this person says, after she'd said a bunch of other stuff about the former quick tip, which was quick tip 376, unifying a painting. She says, I would love a quick tip about temperature as a unifying element. And she does comment that she believes I touched on it in my book, but she wants to see what I have to say about that. Color as a unifying element. Well, let's just think about color temperature for a while. Color temperature is probably one of the most misunderstood concepts in painting. So let's look at first, what is color temperature, what influences, what does it mean, and where do we use it, how do we use it in painting? And then, can it be used as a unifying element, referring back to the Quick Tip 376 on unifying a painting with color. All right, color temperature is caused by hue. Our hues are such that we have classed them into temperatures according to their overall feeling or conception, but the temperature of a painting is really governed by the color of the light, the temperature of the light that is illuminating whatever subject we're working with. Well, here's how it works pretty much. The warmer colors are on one side of the color wheel. And you can't do this without a color wheel. I mean, color wheel helps you to understand it. The warmer colors are located on one side. The cooler colors are located on another. Now, where does that come from? Well, it comes from the three colors that cannot be made with other colors, not in their pure saturated form. Yellow cannot be created with another color, not when it's fully saturated form. It is known as a primary for that reason. Red is the same thing. Red, in its purest saturated form, cannot be created with another color. And then there's blue, same thing. So those three colors are referred to as primaries for that reason. All the other colors or hues that we find on the color wheel are in some way combination of red, yellow, and blue. And I know that when we're mixing pigments, we don't always get pure forms of that, because the pigments that that form our paints don't always yield us that, but the formulations of some of those colors will. Now, what I mean by that is green is a really, really good example. If you mix a yellow with, say, ultramarine blue, you're not going to get a pure saturated green. If you mix yellow with a phthalo blue, you will get a pure saturated green. And so that's a topic for another tip. But anyway, the warm and the cool, the warmer the color we find, the more of a warm hue it has in it. The cooler a color we find, the more it has of the cooler blue in it. And so then if you look at the color wheel, just on this side, these colors, when next to these colors, are cooler. Well, we even call them cooler no matter if we have no other colors to compare them with. And the opposite is true. The colors that are in the yellow, or that read as being more in the yellow to yellow orange onto the red range, are warmer. They feel warmer to us. Now, the way the color wheel is organized, we have colors that are opposite each other, and those colors that are opposite each other will influence each other. If we add violet, which is cooler than yellow, to yellow, a little bit of violet to yellow, it neutralizes it, but it also cools it. And the more violet we add to yellow, the cooler it gets. Same thing is true in reverse, but a little different. The more yellow we add to violet, the warmer it gets. And it gets more neutral, but it also gets warmer. So what if we have just cool colors in a painting? Well, then we look at how much of the warmer colors is in those cooler colors. So in reality, blue-green is warmer than blue. So it doesn't have to be opposite. A lot of people want to think in terms of extremes when comparing these things, but it doesn't work that way. Visually, blue-green is warmer than blue, and blue-violet is warmer than blue. Blue-violet moves more towards red, which is a warmer color. Blue-green moves more towards yellow, which is a warmer color. And so then these two are warmer than this one. Now, how does that work in painting? What happens in painting is that the colors in painting, in order for the painting to be unified, and for the color to be unified, must be harmonized. Now, harmony is one of those things we aim for in our paintings in order to keep things feeling as if they're under the same color of light. So I have here a little study I did, and I want to show you what happens now if you have all your colors, if you don't have all your colors in harmony, how it interrupts that feeling of unity. Now remember from the previous quick tip, from the quick tip on the unifying with color, unity means everything belongs. And so if there is a feeling of color that doesn't belong, then it's not unified. Neither is it harmonized. So we have to have color harmony to have unity. So therefore, the temperature, if the overall temperature of the painting feels that it is under the same light, or we don't feel a color within the painting that feels far removed from that temperature area, then it feels unified. In that sense, we could say that temperature will unify the painting. So let's look at this painting. Now, you say, okay, it's got greens in it. Well, all those greens, it does have greens. It has some cooler greens. You see, these are bluer greens here. Has some warmer greens, but they have one thing in common, and that is that they have yellow in them. And that yellow in them, the yellow that we put in there, gives that feeling of unity, gives that feeling of harmony. Same thing with the sky. The sky is more of a blue leaning towards green. It's about right in here on the color wheel. Now, what I want to do first of all, I'm going to go for the same value of a blue that does not lean towards green, a blue that does not have the yellow in it, and show you what will happen if we do that. So what I'll do is I've got ultramarine blue here. Ultramarine blue has no yellow in it. And so we will add enough white to the ultramarine blue. A lot of people will just form their skies with ultramarine blue. Well, this might change your mind on that. So what I'm going to show you, there's the ultramarine blue, and let's see, is it in the same value range? Maybe a little bit darker. Let's get it just a little bit lighter so we can keep that value range there of the ultramarine blue. And so if I put the ultramarine blue right there, can you feel how that throws the whole thing out of harmony, out of unity? That doesn't feel as if it belongs within that sky or within any of these greens here. So there's the ultramarine blue I just put on there. Now if I add just a touch, not much, but just a touch of yellow into that, which is closer to what we have right here. Let's see. All right, just a touch. And I put that right here. Let's get that just a little bit lighter. Maybe just a tiny bit more yellow in there so that we can really read it. Let's put it right here. There we go. Now you can perceive the difference. If I put that, even that doesn't have quite enough yellow in it. And so let's see. Put just a little bit more. I don't want it green. but I do want it to feel in harmony. There, that is more in harmony. Let's get that a little bit lighter. Right here, that is more in harmony. It feels a little muddy because I did not use the yellow and the blue to do my sky. I used the phthalo blue instead of the ultramarine blue. But that shows you now, this does feel more in harmony visually, and therefore more unified. This sticks out like a sore thumb. Now I'm going to do a similar thing in the green. And in that sense, yes, temperature does play that role in unifying a painting as a unifying element. In that sense, it's a unifying element. I want to add here, as far as the unifying element goes, not just one thing unifies a painting. It's several things working together. So we need the color to be unified. We need the shapes to be unified. And not just unity, but it needs to be balanced. The painting needs to be balanced. And there are other things too that go into it. But now we're just addressing that. The other thing I want to point out, it is the hue that creates the temperature. So whenever we're using hue and we're unifying or harmonizing hue, we're also harmonizing temperature. So the other thing I want to do here is I want to throw in a green in here that is out of tune. So in this case I have the Rembrandt Viridian. Now that's Rembrandt Viridian by itself, which is sort of a blue-green. It does have a little bit of yellow in it, but we'll see, does it have enough yellow in it to really unify? So if I put that blue, let me retract that. If I take that Rembrandt Viridian, which is very similar, by the way, to phthalo green. Phthalo green is a little stronger. Some phthalo greens have a little more yellow in them, but in hue they're very, very similar. So let's go in this area right here where the yellow green is, and see if I put that. You see how out of harmony that is. Got it pretty much in the same value range, but I put this green. Now that is a green, but it's a blue green. It's leaning out of the range. It's moving in this direction, further away from the feeling of yellow to yellow green. So in the deep shadows, things do lean a little bit more towards the cooler green, but they still have enough of the harmonizing in them so that we can read them as being harmonizing with the whole scene. So if we go into the darker version of that same blue-green and we put it here, can you see it throws that whole area out of tune? It doesn't have enough of the yellow in it. In fact, it needs not just the yellow, but it needs a little bit more of that yellow. It needs a little bit more of its complement too, because when things go into shadow, there are not so many light rays there, and so it begins to get a little less intense. So I'm hoping that will show you now how, first of all, how important it is to keep those colors in that same temperature range, and how important it is to keep the painting unified within a temperature range, so that it reads as if it's under the same color of light. One little experiment you might try which would be a good way to communicate this. You can go to an office supply store, and maybe even Walmart or a place like that, and get a package of transparencies. Then if you set up a still life, say if you set up a still life of tomatoes, bell peppers, something like that, and you put a light on it, a direct light on it. If you hold that transparency, if you get, say take the yellow transparency first of all. Now the direct light has its own color, its own temperature, meaning it's either leaning a little bit more towards the warm, the reds and the yellows and the oranges, or a little bit more towards the blue, which is this direction. But then if you hold that transparency in front of that light, watch how it changes all the color on the setup you've just done. Then try another, try a green one, try another one. That shows you how it is the color of the light that influences the unity and the harmony of the color. And what it's influencing is the hue, not the value, not the saturation, but it's influencing the hue. Be sure to view all of our quick tips. And while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to DianneMize.com where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.